Good afternoon, everybody. Pigskin Pete here. Happy Thursday to everybody. Today, I'm going to just do a brief update on some of the things both in the ACC media days and in the SEC media days that are grabbing headlines, and some things that I found to be interesting. Now, later today, you will have the Atlantic Division coaches speaking in the ACC, which of course includes Dabo, Swinney, Bobby Petrino, Willie Taggart, the three main coaches that I'm looking forward to hearing from in the ACC. But before I get into that, since they haven't spoken yet, I do want to talk about some things that have already been said and been in the headlines. So I'm sure everybody, if you've turned the internet on or the TV or the radio today, have heard about Larry Fedora's comments. Larry Fedora, if you don't know, is the head coach at the University of North Carolina. Now, before I even give my opinion on what he said, I do want to say he's being crucified all throughout the media for his comments. Now, some of that criticism is well-deserved because he didn't think very clearly before he opened his mouth. Basically, what he said, or what you're hearing in the news that he said anyways, is that football is under attack and that basically CTE is a farce and there is no real connection between CTE and football. Now, whether or not you even agree with whether or not CTE is real or not is irrelevant, okay? It's sort of like climate change in politics. And I'm not going to get into politics, but you have a very large group of scientists that say that humans are causing climate change, and you have a group of scientists that are saying that you can't relate humans to climate change. So whether or not you believe that or not is irrelevant. The same thing is going on with CTE and head injuries in football. So what Larry Fedora, his biggest mistake here was not what he believes. His biggest mistake was not realizing that the comments he was going to make were going to be not received well throughout the country. And at the end of the day, you are the CEO of the University of North Carolina football team. There's certain situations when if you don't believe something, you're better off just keeping your mouth shut about it because you're not going to achieve anything positive by making that statement. Furthermore, for those who don't know this, the University of North Carolina are one of the leading universities in the country in studying CTE. So how do you think that his employers feel about his statements today? I'm sure he got sat down this morning by somebody high up at that university saying, Larry, what in the hell are you doing? You do realize that the University of North Carolina is leading these studies, don't you? So again, at the very least, it was a very, very dumb thing to say, no matter what he believes. Now, the one thing that he said that I do agree with, and this is what sort of sparked the whole conversation in the first place, and then he went off the rails. But what he was saying was when he was a player in college, is that they used to have 3 practices a day. They were only allowed to have 1 cup of water. They were taught to lead with their head when tackling. All these things that are clearly not good for your health in any way. So what he was saying was that he thinks that right now, this point in football history, that football is safer than it's ever been. Now, I agree with that. The equipment's got better. They practice a lot less. Obviously they stay hydrated and they try to teach them to keep the head out of the game as far as tackling and even for runners. So in that respect, I agree with Larry Fedora. But where he went from that to the whole CTE thing was really, really stupid, especially since, sorry, Larry, but you're the coach at the University of North Carolina, sir. You are replaceable. Now, if you get fired at the end of this year, it won't be because of the CTE comments. It will be because you only won 3 or 4 games, which is unacceptable even at North Carolina. All right, on to the next one. So I watched last night before bed the interview with Paul Johnson from Georgia Tech. And man, I'll tell you what, I give Paul Johnson a hard time, and he deserves it. I don't think that his scheme is going to work in modern football. I realize that he was the coach at Navy, where they ran that triple option, and then he came to Georgia Tech, and he kept running the triple option. And as long as he's a coach anywhere in this country, he will continue running the triple option. The problem is that scheme does not work in Power 5 football anymore. The game has changed too much. You're not going to win the ACC. If by some miracle you were able, in today's climate, to win the ACC, you're not going to win past that. okay? You're not going to get into the college football playoff, and you're certainly not going to win a natty doing that. Anyway, all of that aside, they asked him about Clemson in particular and what they called the arms race in the ACC that Clemson is leading. And what they mean by the arms race is facilities, the amount of money that the universities are dedicating to the football program and hiring coaches, assistant coaches, upgrades to the stadium, upgrades to facilities, recruiting, the whole 9 yards. And his answer to that was pretty depressing if you are a Georgia Tech fan. Now, I don't know whether or not he was challenging the Georgia Tech athletic department to do something, sort of like what Jimbo Fisher did last year, and ultimately led to Jimbo Fisher leaving to a school where they were dedicating a lot of money and effort into the football program. But basically he said, look, we're never going to catch Clemson in recruiting. We're never going to catch Clemson in attendance to games, stadium, facilities, but we are very proud of our academic standards at Georgia Tech. Now, that's great, sir. We all know Georgia Tech is a hard school to get into, and it's very, very smart people that go there. That's not news to anybody, but news to you, sir. I didn't realize that you are a science professor at Georgia Tech. I thought you were a football coach. All right, I'm going to move on to the next subject before I blow a vein. Now, I mentioned earlier that Dabo's coming on later today, and I certainly will give you a recap on that. Now, the one thing about Dabo Swinney in interviews, especially at these media days, he's very good at dealing with the media. He likes dealing with the media. He will give you some tidbits here and there. He's not all coach speak. One thing that he said yesterday in a sort of a preliminary interview when he was asked about the situation between Trevor Lawrence and Kelly Bryant, of course, they're going to ask that, who's going to start, or who are you going to start game one, or do you see Trevor Lawrence becoming a starter at any point during the year? He compared it back to when Deshaun Watson came in as a true freshman and was battling with Cole Stout. The reason this is similar is because Cole Stout was a senior. It was his final year at Clemson, and he had been sitting behind Tajh Boyd for all of those years that Tajh Boyd was the starter. The same way that Kelly Bryant was sitting behind Deshaun Watson all of those years that Deshaun Watson was a starter. And then you had this five-star, highly recruited, highly touted, young, true freshman quarterback coming in trying to take your job. Now, he did admit that the gap between Deshaun Watson and Cole Stout was a lot wider than what it is between Kelly Bryant and Trevor Lawrence. So basically what he was saying was, he started Deshaun Watson, I think his first start was game 2 of that freshman season of Deshaun Watson. And he said it just became evident both in late in fall practice and then after he came in the first half against Georgia, his first game of his true freshman year, he has separated himself from Cole Stout, both in ability and able, just overall quarterback play. He's saying now, one thing that was very shocking that he said, first of all, was that there's not a big gap between Kelly Bryant and Trevor Lawrence either way, or Chase Bryce. He even threw him in there for good measure. But according to him, there's not a big gap. So that leads you automatically to believe that it's Kelly Bryant's job to lose at this point. The next and most shocking thing that he said that actually kind of took me by surprise, I couldn't believe that a coach would even say this, especially Dabo, as measured as he is that he loves Kelly Bryant so much as a person, his dedication to the program, sticking around all those years when he could have went and played at a lot of other schools, sitting behind Deshaun Watson, not transferring, coming in last year as a junior, first-year starter, leading him to the college football playoffs. And he said he hopes that Kelly Bryant wins the starting job. That's right. Dabo Swinney officially said on record that he hopes that Kelly Bryant wins the starting job. Now, he didn't say, I'm going to start Kelly Bryant because I think he's the better quarterback of the two. He's saying that whoever's going to be the starter has to earn it. He's not going to just put somebody out there for, being at Clemson longer. He's going to put the best player on the field to win the game. So I do want to give him his credit by saying that. But to come in out there and say that as a head coach, I'm rooting for one player to win the starting job over another is something that I never thought I would hear him say. It did take me by surprise. So it'll be interesting to see how he addresses that same question today at Media Days. I'll be looking forward to it, and I will get back to you after that happens if anything newsworthy happens. Also, Willie Taggart and, like I said, Bobby Petrino, other two coaches I'm really looking forward to hearing speak. So have a great day. Go ACC, go Tigers. Pigskin Pete checking out.